So imagine you're at a store, right? You buy something simple like a coffee, and you get a receipt.
Right.
It's itemized, it's clear. But what if, um, instead of buying a coffee, you were handed a receipt just for existing?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like for taking your first breath or falling in love or, even for your final moments. What if life itself had a barcode?
That is a pretty heavy thought.
It is. And that's exactly our mission for today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We are looking at a fascinating and honestly slightly unsettling stack of sources. They examine how the most profound milestones of human existence, birth, love, conflict, death,
Yeah.
have been quietly transformed into multi-billion-dollar global industries. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way.
Thanks. And, looking at these sources, it's a massive architectural shift in how society operates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to pre-modern society, the big milestones of your life, like having a child, getting married, burying a loved one, those were managed by your immediate community.
Right, like the church or your extended family.
Exactly. The whole foundation was ritual and mutual aid. People helped each other out. But today, that ritualistic motive has been almost entirely replaced by a profit motive.
Wow.
We're basically exploring how these massive intermediaries have just, inserted themselves into your most private, vulnerable moments.
And to really grasp the scale of this, we aren't just looking at one country. We're pulling data from the USA, Canada, the UK, and the Caribbean to see how this monetization of chaos plays out across totally different cultures and economies.
Which is so important because it's not a localized issue, it's global.
Right. So let's start chronologically at the very beginning of life. The cost of entry. Literally the moment you were born, the financial meter starts running.
It really does. And the disparity in how that meter is read globally, well, it tells you everything about a society's priorities. In some places, it's a highly visible retail transaction, and in others, it's deeply hidden.
Okay, let's look at the highly visible version first, which is the U.S. healthcare machine. The numbers here are staggering. An average U.S. childbirth will run you about $20,416 in total.
Good grief.
Yeah, and even with insurance, you're looking at $2,743 straight out of pocket.
Right, but the nuances and the medical variations, isn't it?
Exactly. So a standard vaginal birth averages around $15,700. But if you need a C-section, and by the way, a full third of U.S. mothers do that, that price jumps to almost $29,000.
So you're essentially hit with a $10,000 penalty for a medical complication you can't control.
Yes. And then there's the regional extreme. If you live in Mississippi, it's about $7,600.
Yeah.
But in California,
Let me guess. Double?
worse, over $19,200.
Oh, wow.
It's a geographical lottery.
But, when you look abroad, the hidden costs are fascinating. Take the UK and Canada.
Right, because they have public health care.
Yeah, so in the UK, the NHS covers the actual birth. It's free at the point of use.
So no hospital bill.
Right, no hospital bill. But the monetization just shifts to the first year of life. British parents spend an average of £8,460 on gear, formula, and nappies in that first year.
Ah, so the intermediaries still get their cut, just at the retail level.
Exactly. And then you look at Canada, and it's what the sources call monetization by obscurity.
Monetization by obscurity. What does that mean?
Well, the public system obscures the true costs. Take the Northwest Territories, for example. Because mothers from remote communities have to travel so far, hospitals often end up acting as de facto hotels.
Like they stay there for days.
Yeah, stays over 2 days just for standard deliveries.
Yeah.
But when asked, the government admits the exact costs of this are, quote, not available.
Wait, they don't even know what it costs.
It claimed the data isn't available. It's a monetization by obscurity.
That's wild. And then you contrast that with the Caribbean, where the public system is just so visibly strained. In Jamaica, families actually have to buy their own gloves and syringes to bring to the public hospital.
They got to bring their own medical supplies?
Yeah, just to give birth. And if you want to bypass that and go private in Trinidad, a C-section is going to run you about $5,200 US dollars.
Which is a fortune in that local economy.
Right. It makes me think, being born today is like downloading a free app that immediately hits you with hidden in-app purchases.
That's a perfect analogy.
But if governments in places like Canada can't even calculate the cost of a birth, how can citizens ever know if their healthcare systems are actually efficient?
They can't. That's the danger of the obscured data. Which, brings us to the next big life event.
Right. From the moment we enter the world, we move to the moment we choose a partner. The wedding industrial complex.
The sources refer to this as the preemptive consumption economy.
Oh, turning intimacy into inventory. I love that phrasing. We unpack the U.S. average wedding cost, which is around $33,000, and in the U.K., it's nearly £22,000.
It's an inflation of expectation.
Oh, totally. Think about the two-month salary ring rule.
The De Beers diamond cartel invention.
Exactly. It's not a tradition, it was an ad campaign. But people treat it like a law. And in the UK, it's gotten so out of hand that 61% of couples rely on gifted family money just to fund the wedding.
Liquidating family wealth for a party.
Yep. But then we hit the dark mirror of weddings.
The dissolution economy. Divorce.
Yeah. And this is where it gets kind of dark.
It really does, because the legal industry's hourly billing model actually financially incentivizes protracted litigation.
Like the longer you fight, the more they make.
Exactly. Amicable resolution is terrible for an hourly billing structure. And this creates a situation where couples are literally trapped by economics.
Trapped.
Well, look at Canada. The divorce rate there has plummeted from 12.7 to 5.6 per thousand. Oh, wow. Are people just happier?
No, not at all. It's because an average divorce costs $18,000. And when you combine that with their severe housing crisis, people literally cannot afford to separate.
So they just stay married on paper.
Yeah, they can't afford the legal fees or the rent for two separate places.
That's depressing.
Mm.
And the Caribbean mirrors this perfectly with what they call economic co-parenting. Couples stay under one roof because a two-bedroom apartment costs 80% of a single parent's take-home pay.
80%, that's unsustainable.
Right. But wait, let me push back a little here. So the wedding industry might actually be a victim of its own excess, right? Because the sources show U.S. wedding parties are down 20% since 2019.
That's true, yeah.
Younger people are citing this anti-waste mentality and prioritizing paying off student loans instead. So are we finally reaching the breaking point of what couples are willing to spend?
I think we might be. There is a ceiling to manufactured demand, and Gen Z and millennials are definitely hitting it. They're looking at that ROI and saying, yeah, no thanks. Right. So if divorce shows us how industries profit from domestic conflict, let's scale that up. The sources move from the household to the global stage.
The architecture of chaos, crime and global conflict.
Exactly. War as a bull market.
It's a sobering thought, but the management of chaos is undeniably more profitable than its resolution.
Yeah, defense contractors don't necessarily want world peace, do they?
Well, economically speaking, they need ongoing conflict to generate investor returns.
Right, because the U.S. is pushing a $1.5 trillion defense budget. And that generates a projected $52 billion in free cash flow for top contractors.
$52 billion. And it's not just the U.S. Look at Canada setting a $500 billion target and the U.K. accelerating defense to 3% of their GDP.
But they're spinning it differently, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. They reframe war spending as domestic industrial strategy and job creation.
Like, don't worry about the weapons, look at the jobs we're making.
Exactly. It's a very effective political pivot.
And then you contrast that state-level war machine with the Caribbean, where conflict is monetized totally informally.
Right, through gangs.
Yeah, gang extortion in Trinidad costs the economy 500 million TT dollars annually.
500 million just in extortion.
Just in extortion. Small businesses paying rent to gangs, and this births a massive private security boom. In Jamaica, the private security sector employs double the number of actual black officers.
Double. That is a wild statistic. The state has essentially outsourced security to private corporations.
Yeah. And speaking of outsourcing, let's talk about the punishment industrial complex. The prison systems.
Ah, yes, the privatization of punishment.
In the U.S., private companies like the GEO Group sign contracts with ICE that include these things called guaranteed minimums for detention beds.
Right, which means the government is paying for a certain number of beds, whether they have people to put in them or not.
Exactly. If I'm understanding this right, if a private prison has a guaranteed minimum occupancy contract with the government, doesn't that literally incentivize the state to keep crime or detention rates high?
I mean, logically, yes.
How can a society ever rehabilitate people when rehabilitation is terrible for business?
It's a huge paradox. The financial incentive is completely misaligned with the societal goal, and we see failures in public systems too.
Like in the UK.
Yeah, the UK has an overcrowded public system, housing over 87,000 people. They're seeing rising violence and failing inspection grades.
Because it's starved of resources. And in the Caribbean, it's even worse, but in a different way. The burden is privatized down to the families.
Right, the families of the incarcerated.
They spend $500 to $1,500 a month just to provide toilet paper and food for their relatives in prison.
Because the state facilities don't provide the basics. That's a profound burden on people who are probably already economically marginalized.
It's just constant extraction. Which brings us to the ultimate milestone, the final transaction.
Death.
Yeah, death. The one universal certainty where the intermediaries collect their final check.
The corporatization of grief.
The U.S. funeral industry is dominated by these massive corporate consolidators like SCI. The average U.S. funeral is $9,500,
And the markups are incredible.
up to 300% on caskets.
300% on a box you bury in the ground.
Yeah, a box you literally put in the dirt.
Wow. And the global variations are just as intense. In Canada, they've basically municipalized the costs through cemetery plot fees.
Like the local governments are cashing in.
Exactly. In places like St. Albert, you can pay up to $1,750 just for the plot of land. That's before any other funeral costs.
Goodness. And in the UK, the average is £5,140. And the sources point out that 15% of families experience notable financial concerns over this.
Forcing them onto credit cards or even crowdfunding just to bury a relative.
Which is heartbreaking. But then you look at the Caribbean, and it's heavily affected by import duties.
Wait, island economies.
Yeah, a casket can reach $3,500 because of shipping and a 30% duty.
A 30% tax on a casket.
But the absolute worst part, the part that really got me, was the violent death surcharges in Trinidad.
Oh, I read about this. It's tragic.
Funeral homes are charging an extra $3,000 to $5,000 TT dollars for reconstructive embalming for gun-related deaths.
So the family loses a loved one to violence and then gets financially penalized for the nature of the crime.
Exactly. It's like life is a highway, and death is just the final toll booth, only you're leaving your family to scramble for the change.
That's a really stark way to put it, but it's entirely accurate.
But, it's not all doom and gloom. There is a silver lining here, right?
There is. Across all these sources, we're seeing a growing counter-movement. People
Yeah.
are reclaiming the ritual.
Yeah. People are finding ways to bypass the intermediaries. Like in the U.S., families are shifting to birthing centers, which average $8,300, or home births for $4,600.
Much better than the $29,000 hospital bill.
Exactly. And in the UK, there's been a 21% rise in direct cremations.
Right, skipping the expensive embalming and viewings.
And we mentioned the minimony trend for weddings.
Smaller, cheaper weddings, yeah.
And in the Caribbean, they rely heavily on susu.
Yes, they're rotating savings groups. It's community-driven. You bypass the banks, bypass the high interest rates, and just rely on your neighbors.
Love that.
It really emphasizes the main takeaway here for you listening. The illusion is believing these massive financialized systems exist primarily for your benefit.
Right, they don't.
No, they exist to generate returns for shareholders or municipalities or industries. You have to recognize when you're being treated as a consumer of your own existence.
A consumer of your own existence. That's powerful. And I want to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
If the modern market is structured to profit from the ongoing management of human problems, from war and crime to health and relationship breakdowns rather than their actual resolution,
Okay.
are we, as a society, slowly losing the capacity to actually solve anything?
Wow.
Like, if curing a societal ill is bad for business, will the business of life eventually make progress completely impossible?
That is something to think about.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. consumer, you